What's going on, everybody? Just want to get on here and bring everybody back to now. Appreciate y'all being here and vibing with me for a bit. I just wanted to talk about a couple concepts that have been hitting my radar. One of which has been kind of hitting it pretty hard, and that has to do with kind of getting out of like the concept of you got to do. And this is something I hear a lot of spiritual people talking about, where it's like, oh, you got to raise your vibe. And that's, something I probably talked about, maybe on some level, but realize that you are already a high vibe being. It's like, it's all the programming and it's all the shit from the ego, all these errors in thought of separation that are almost, think of kind of like the vertical dimension, which it has to do with like a vibration, energy, frequency, and all that kind of stuff. Love being the highest frequency. And God is love, and so that exponential growth is infinity basically. But it's like to move up the vertical. There's almost a stumbling block in the spiritual community of like, oh well, I got to do these things to raise my vibe. Oh, I got to think the right way. I got to take control of our thoughts, and it's like part of that in the renewing the mind process is like, yeah, we all go through these stages, but kind of to a shortcut. I mean, if I can teach you a shortcut that'll save a lot of suffering, is to realize that think of your consciousness as a cork underwater that's being held down by these limiting beliefs, these assumptions, these errors in thinking, and a lot of this shit we've learned from childhood, our dysfunctional childhood. we're I don't know if a lot of people experience like this conditional love where it's like, if you're not good enough, then your parents will punish you and make you suffer and try to manipulate you in that way, and it's not their fault, obviously, and we're all experience that, some more than others, but like, the thing is, as you put on the new man, as you let go of this old man that was, a separate little ego, thinking that was your identity when it's not, and you start to realize, creation starts to really mirror your consciousness, your beliefs, your assumptions, your connection with God, what you think is real. As you get older, it's like you start, thinking that you're so smart because you're just right all the time. And it's like, you're not really right. You're just cementing a version of reality in building a little prison cell for yourself and in your box of beliefs that gets smaller and smaller and smaller, as basically you start to live more and more in a state of fear and suffering and torment. You don't have to, it's only ever now. So it's like recognizing that is an awesome thing, because now all of a sudden you can make a different choice, because what happens is the inner state is the catalyst for the external. It's like as you hold on to these fears, these limiting beliefs, those get projected onto the screen of space. It gets projected onto people. It doesn't bear any resemblance to reality except for in your own perception. But the thing of it is, it's real for you. And a lot of ways perception is reality. But the thing of it is, it's like you almost get caught in these feedback loops, though, when you unconsciously drift into states of consciousness that you don't like. Like anger is a good example. It's like you start getting angry, which a root symptom of that is the feeling that you're separate from the situation and the circumstance. So you don't catch the pattern that starts to happen as you become more and more that state of anger that gets pushed out, and then all of a sudden now, creation is pretty impersonal like that, where it's just it's personal as a mirror, where it's like you're looking in front of a mirror and you're being that state of anger, and now you're getting back reflected to you more situations that are like annoying, angry, irritating, angry people, angry, stupid ass circumstances. It's like you be working and all of a sudden it's just like, if you do like a physical job, it's like maybe you hit your thumb with a hammer, then you drop something on your toe, then you slice your finger with a razor knife, and it's like, what the fuck, it's just one thing, and then you maybe drop a whole bunch of shit, spill it, and it's like, and you get more and more angry, and then you get stuck in this feedback loop, and then where it's like the more angry you become, the more the mirror shows you how angry you are. And it's like, well, if you like that state so much, you can choose any state, and part of like the new man is realizing that all these thoughts, even if they're maybe temporarily joyful thoughts, they're all stemming from past. It's all money is a good example, where it's like you could have this scarcity mindset that you just learn from the ego, thinking that everything's separate and there's not enough, and these programs and things that we tell ourselves that aren't real. But the thing of it is, it's like maybe you don't have any, because you have a limiting belief about it. And that gets reflected back, and so you have little to of money to kind of spend and whatnot. Well, the opposite, when you start getting a shitload of money, then you're still in scarcity, but you're on the other side of it, where now you're afraid you're going to lose it. But you get these thoughts, were just situations and circumstances too. It just doesn't have to be money. It's like you can have a thought that maybe makes you happy, but then it's like, well, then you start having a fear that you'll never be happy like that again, or that situation will never happen that way again, and then you start feeling sad and depressed. And part of this is letting go of these things, and and with that, using the kind of the reoccurring patterns and the themes that start to emerge in your environment, going within to see how there's a connection. It's like when you start, and I'll get this, and I'll get triggered by it, where it's like I'll start maybe listening to too much from others, and like valuing like this external opinion more than my own, which is a kind of a pattern, and but what happens is I start getting triggered, and what gets triggered about it is like I start hearing more and more so of like, oh, to raise your vibe, you got to do this, you got to eat this way, you got to exercise, you got to do, and it's like, dude, I don't got to do shit. Why do I keep getting into this law keeping of like, I got to do, when Jesus already did it, for one, and for two, I'm under grace now. God, I don't have to do these things to raise my vibe or to please God, because God's already pleased with me. But seeing that in others helps you recognize more and more so that kind of unconsciously drifted in to the egoic kind of conditional love, and part of it's unconscious. It's like you didn't choose to start to get into that state, of not feeling worthy or not feeling a certain way. It just kind of, maybe something happens that could be a neutral, but then all of a sudden the inner meaning, the thoughts maybe that come, remind you of something that happened, and then all of a sudden you make these connections, and then all of a sudden you don't realize that you've planted these seeds until all of a sudden it's manifesting around you, and it's like, whoa, what the heck just happened? Why am I in the upside down again? But catching that faster and faster and going, no, Jesus already did the work. I'm not under the law, which the Bible describes the law as being a curse. I'm under grace. We're under grace, and putting on that new man that God's already pleased with me. God says I'm a masterpiece. God's happy with me. I'm blessed, and it's my faith that in that now all of a sudden I'm putting that identity on. I don't have to stand in front of the mirror of creation and get in my mind about what I think. Because so much of this kind of this old man, even when it comes to like some of the stumbling blocks that can happen from the law of attraction, which I feel like is all part of the process. I feel like everything's more of a neutral, but some of the issues that can come up that can cause suffering, is like, oh, I gotta get to the bottom of my thoughts, and keep my mind super positive or super unrealistic maybe. But the thing of it, you don't originate the thought. The state that you're in starts to originate the thoughts, and you can almost start to reflect on the thoughts that you are getting. There's stop giving them importance. Use them as information, but that is not, you are not the thoughts. You are the witness of the thoughts. You're the observer. They come, and they can come, they can go. You can build up, let it go. There's many ways you can kind of handle some of these things. But the quickest way is if you start maybe getting maybe not good enough or triggered or fear. Maybe you start feeling constricted. Some energy draining thought. The thought plus the emotion, then kind of creates a different vibe, especially when it's like an ego creation. You start feeling fear. The thought itself, not that much, but if you believe the thought, then you almost feel that by the emotion that triggers this drain of energy. And even from that, catching that pattern faster and faster, and go, well, I'm getting this thought. You can sit there and try to get to the bottom of it, get to the bottom of all these fears and all this shit from the old man. Or you can do an easier approach and just let the old man be crucified with Christ and realize you are new now and that these thoughts don't belong to you. Make that choice in the moment that, I'm new, I am blessed, and these aren't my thoughts. For one. For two, I'm going to choose to put on the new man and ask God for the new thoughts that accompany the new man. You don't have to keep kind of reinventing anything. You just ask for the direction to go. You go within to ask. It's you have what's going on out here in the illusion, but so much of it being an illusion, it just mirrors your identity where you're at the moment. It doesn't mean it's real. You can have, because you can be projecting your own shit to others and projecting your own dramas and projecting your own things that are, there's been so many times where I've like said things with an intent of just like helping or just sharing something, but then someone says something back to me. It's like, I don't know how you even heard that. It's like that's so far from what I was saying to in my own opinion. It's like I don't understand that disconnect, but not getting too hung up on it. Think of things. This is a really kind of an easy visual. A cork. If you get like a wine bottle or whatever, typically you put a cork in water and it floats. Well, that's kind of how your natural state is. The new man, you float, and it's these limiting beliefs, these assumptions, these past programmings that are holding you down. Your natural state is high vibe. Your natural state is love, joy, and peace. And that's now. It's like you don't have to keep striving and struggling and if I just don't do some particular thing, or whatever, then God will love me and I'll be blessed. It's like, God already loves you now. I mean, you don't have to keep proving yourself. God already knows who you are. God already knows what's going on in your consciousness. It's like God knows who He created. Who you fooling? Besides, these are thoughts from the old man that aren't who you are anymore. And so just getting those thoughts is a red flag. It's like, oh, I'm listening to the wrong guide. I'm listening to the old man. And the problem with the old man is then you get the old man cycles, these patterns, these feedback loops of it, of suffering. That's all the ego does, the suffer, because it creates fear, and it tries to keep you safe from the fear that it creates. That's not even real. It's part of the insanity loop. But it's like as you drop and let go of those thoughts, those errors in thinking, the cork naturally starts to float up. And if you think of God at being the top, being pure love, energy, being pure conscious awareness, love. By the time you put labels on the infinite intelligence, you're already starting to distort it for people because now you got a label that's up for interpretation. But the thing of it is, it's like to raise your vibe, you don't do that through your works of righteousness. You do that by letting go of the old man, because you are already a high vibe being. You are already one with God. now. It's a process of realizing that connectedness, and you feel that in the moment. You feel that in your heart. You don't feel that in your mind. Almost all these thoughts, really, when you get, really observe them for a long enough time, none of them are real. All of them are from the past. Even joyful thoughts that have a temporary, satisfaction to them, they have a double edge at times, whereas then all of a sudden it could put you in fear or depression of, like, reminiscing of the good old days, and I won't be like that anymore, and now I'm just starting to feel down. It's like, that's not who you are. That's who the old you is, but that's not who you are. And the problem is when you put on the old man, and then it projects out, and that's what you start to experience through these different reflections through creation. But when you put on the new man, well, now all of a sudden, maybe something hits your radar, and maybe it's like a weed that triggers you, and it's like, oh, what the fuck was that about? Don't sit there and just be all, oh, this doesn't work. It's so easy to fall into these patterns. You get one hang up in a 24-hour day, and it's like one thing didn't go right. Oh, I'm just going to throw everything out, and this doesn't work. It's just like, chill out, but this is something I tell to myself, because I get in these patterns. But, it's like, it's like, well, it's there to show you this weight that's sitting on your cork. Let's keep this little scrap of fear, this little error in thought, that if you just resolved it with God and with the truth, you'd be able to enjoy right now, enjoy this life right now in this very moment more. So it's like the insanity is like, I want to hold on to suffering. I think it's okay to just sit here and torment myself just a little bit, just a hair, just a little bit. But when you could just let it go, let go of it. And the funny thing is, it's like you're holding on not only to something that's causing you suffering, but you're also holding on to something that is not real. It's like a story. It's some programming. It's some nonsense, basically, that you just like, well, I feel comfortable with herpes. That's kind of what it is. It was like some sexually transmitted disease or something, where it's just like, I could get rid of it, or it feels kind of like I've gotten used to it now, so it's almost part of my identity. It's like, that's not who you are. That's not your identity now. It's like, you just let it go. You don't have to keep holding on to it. Holding on to this weight that's keeping your cork down. That's keeping you, you could be up here, vibing high, loving yourself, loving life, experiencing that reflection, experiencing all things being possible to you, which they are possible to you. You are blessed. You are not cursed. Everything is possible, and nothing is impossible. If you can imagine it, it exists, and God can make it happen for you right now. As soon as you put your faith in that direction, the wheels are already in motion to start to reflect this new reality to you, this new identity. And you don't have to get in your mind about it. Oh, I gotta, what if I have a, what if worst case scenario? Oh, somebody from, the outside is now telling me some contrary information. Oh, it's like the source of truth is within you. It's one thing to, faith comes by hearing, so it's not a bad thing to listen to others and what's going on with them, but the inner guidance system that the Holy Spirit is your teacher, and that's within you. It's not you only ever have two choices, and really any problem, any irritation, any triggering event, most of it is in your mind, and most of it comes from listening to the wrong guide. The egoic consciousness is the wrong guide. And it's like the more that you realize, you're getting triggered, you're getting these thoughts that are stemming from a state that you're unconsciously starting to drift into, and you're starting to, on some level, start to get in this feedback loop. Instead of, just letting the feedback loop get more and more intense, this is like, I'm going to stop listening to that thought, that old identity. I'm going to ask God for a new thought. I'm going to ask the Holy Spirit to correct this error in thought. And it's wild, because the problem, the error in thought, is corrected in the same breath by asking for the Holy Spirit to correct it. It's not complicated. It's in fact so simple that the simplicity of it boggles the egoic consciousness. It's like the ego mind wants it to be hard and complicated and convoluted and have all these different. You got to be a genius to comprehend this. It's like, no, a child can comprehend this, and in more cases, a child can comprehend it better than some brainwashed, unconscious adult that's stuck in these programs that now feel so right because the mirror is showing them that. But that's everybody's own process. But the biggest part of it is realizing now that you don't have to continuously get stuck in these feedback loops. You recognize it, showing you something. It's like don't get triggered. Don't get all of a sudden freaking out. Oh, I just I got on some level, I don't want to say triggered, but it's like and this is a good example. It's where it's like I'd get on Facebook or whatever, and I just see all these people like posting, Saturday morning cartoons is now trying to be canceled. And these are old cartoons, like shit I used to watch when I was a kid, 20, 30 years ago. And it's just like people are, this isn't this, and people are getting all triggered, and it's like, which then triggered me. And it's like, why do you give a shit what these people are saying? Why are you letting this? If you like, just turn it off. Which then I'm like saying to basically others, but then it comes right back on me. It's just like, why am I getting triggered? Just turn it off. This doesn't matter. And so it's like what you're saying to others, you're ultimately saying it to yourself because you're guilty of doing the same thing, maybe differently, but not that differently. It's just like using that more as like for information though, and going, oh look, I drifted into a non-conscious pattern again. I'm starting to experience a loop I don't like, instead of like a loop of joy, gratitude, thankfulness, blessing. The creation, like it's very almost impersonal when it comes to how these things start to present. Where it's like God is love. I mean, you feel that love energy. And it's like the more you connect with God and oneness, ultimately, the more that the external starts to mirror that. The kingdom, is more this oneness and love, and you start seeing with true vision, instead of the distortion of separation. But like but it's almost like as you move up the vertical, as you let go of these inner thoughts, these inner beliefs, by realizing right now that God's already made you perfect. God's already happy with you. God loves you right now as much as God loves Jesus. Jesus is within you. It's getting out of this this external, these feedback loops, basically. It's just you, in a lot of way, once you really start to understand the connectedness and the oneness, it's like when you start seeing maybe like weeds, I guess, that start to be manifested. Maybe you're not falling into unconscious patterns, but you still start seeing these little scraps of fear that get presented, through others and through the environment, circumstance, events, these patterns, these different things that just start to come up. When you look at those, and instead of sitting there like, that person, fuck that person, I'm really mad at that person, and you're sending all these curses to them, you're sending all this negative energy to them, realizing that comes right back on you because you're connected to that same person. You just received everything that you just dished out. So it starts to become insane to really put that kind of energy towards others, because it just comes back on you. But when you put, maybe you see something that's dysfunctional, there's almost a hang up that you can start to feel when it comes to just the idea of judging versus just observing, just what you're seeing. It's like when it comes to observing, maybe you see a state, maybe you see someone. It would be foolish if you're like, somebody just got fired from their job, and you they got fired from their job, but who they are is not the job, and some employee. That's not who they are. It's like you're not judging them by like, oh, they're hard on their luck. They just got some shit just got brought to them from whatever, and it's not judging to be like, oh, he lost his job. Almost like the judging comes from, oh, that person's a loser and can't keep a job. That's the when you start to get into identity. It's like that's a loser. That person's this and that. And it's like, how would you feel, knowing, because we are connected. That maybe is the thoughts that start coming into their mind. It's like, oh, I'm a loser and I'm not good enough. Do you really want to be that person? Just like recognize though that you can make a big change in that person's life, because it's like, okay, well, the reverse is also true. So it's like if you're putting a bunch of poison and curses towards others, and that's coming back on you, you can put blessings and it comes back on you just the same. So it starts to become more sane to instead of like sit there and be like, oh, that's a loser and that's their identity and that's who they're always going to be. Step out of that, but like, go, oh, okay, well, I'd like to see that person gainfully employed and prospering, and not only that, but, enjoying what they're doing, have this be a stepping stone to their dreams being fulfilled, and just feel how that energy changes instantly inside of you. You can, if you start connecting like that, and you start to do that more and more so with creation, because as you start to really ultimately love yourself, because that's what you're seeing on the outside. It's like you're seeing a bunch of hate and distortion and everything, and then you're sitting there blaming others. A lot of it is like the more that you put love out there, it comes back on you. But it's like the more love inwardly you have with with God, and just this create who you are, this the whole divine dynamic, whatever. It's like the more love you have toward yourself, then all of a sudden, guess what? That starts getting projected out, and then you start getting more love back, and then then you start getting in more loving cycles, loving feedback, cycles, or whatever, not feedback, but just whatever, these loops, more loving loops, ultimately, moving in a direction where all your thoughts are, moving more and more loving, expanding, because that's who you are. So when you drop the identity of the old man, and you drop the old man beliefs, you drop that old conversation, those inner conversations. Speech mirrors conversations inwardly, and the thing of it is, it's like as you drop those stories and you start building the new, that cork keeps rising and rising and rising and rising, because that's just naturally who you are. You're naturally a high vibe, eternal being, heavenly being, created by God to love. And, ultimately, a lot of times we're mirroring things back to our Creator, and so we're all connected in this thing together, and, ultimately forever, and so it's like, in the now, and with that being said, I think I'm gonna bounce. It's like I like to wrap these things up with a quote unquote random Bible verse. Nothing's random. God's 100% in control of literally everything, and speaks to us in the moment. And I just want to give God a chance to speak to you, who's ever listening now. Let's see what God's got to say. Matthew 5:5. Blessed are the meek, for they shall inherit the earth. There you go. And with that being said, I appreciate you guys liking, sharing, subscribing, all the social networking, internet things. I appreciate your attention for this long. Hopefully I've been a good steward of that. I appreciate your support in the spiritual and in the physical. And with that being said, till the next now. God bless, and enjoy your life. Bye.